couple people are already here. We're going to dive into something really special today. And we are going to bring in the first part of a soul retrieval healing process. This is all about empowering yourself to call your own soul parts back. Hello, good to see you, Julie. Welcome. This is really about stepping into that empowerment. So often when we talk about soul retrieval, and I'm just going to kind of like touch into just the bare bones basics of that for people who will be new to this concept or will be entering this discussion for the first time. We'll look at that. But I kind of want to call in some protective energy around the work that we're going to be doing. I think it's kind of an important piece of it. We're going to just give like a general overview of what soul retrieval is. A lot of people have already brought in those who've been journeying along with this Aries Point road opener, have already been feeling this come in for them because we did bring it in on one of our drop-ins. And I know it resonated with, some people, and they've been curious about it and wanting to see how do I take the next step with this? So we're going to go through this process, but it's going to be a multi-layered process. It's not going to happen in one fell swoop. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to do it in three separate stages. Today will be the first stage. And after we have our drop in around soul retrieval, what it is, and kind of call in some um, protective energy, just in the sense of protecting the energy, the space around the work we'll be doing, because we'll be doing some journeying working. And you can always check out at that portion if you feel like that's not for you, if you feel like, no, I don't need soul retrieval. And that's totally okay. All right. It's just whatever works for you. But I want to make sure I bring forward this piece because it's a really important part of some people's journeys. Hello, Krista. Welcome. So happy to have people here showing up and joining in for this and just dropping in on a deeper current in life. um, it's really enjoyable. I've been really enjoying my social media cleanse. So I'm having a good time dropping in here. The energy is feeling really good. I'm going and checking out other conscious readers and just diving into the more metaphysical community on YouTube, and I've been enjoying the conversations and the connection. It's got me looking at things in a really different way. And here we are for another point of connection today when we're looking at soul retrieval. But I want to hold a good space around that. Okay, so we're going to build the space for that. I think while I build the space for that, I'm going to go ahead and just sort of bring in some energy. We will also do any questions, at the end for those who have questions. I will try to do my best to put up a timestamp. Okay. If any of you happen to catch a timestamp, you're welcome to drop it down. If it's like this is when we moved into the Q&A portion. I pretty much just want to put timestamps for when the journeying starts, and then also timestamp for the Q&A portion at the end for those who don't want to do the journey, but still, wanted to get some information, had some questions, and maybe somebody else will ask a question that, is similar to theirs. So first, I just want to bring in a little tobacco. And if you're dropping in for this, whether you're here for the live or the replay, you are receiving this energy. You're part of this collective. So this energy is also being called in around you. We're building this energy together, holding this space together. And I'm just bringing in some tobacco. Tobacco is considered spirit candy in native tribal tradition. And so I always like to put some up for my ancestors. It just keeps the spirits happy. And we can all use happy spirits on our side. I always like to bring tobacco in also to honor the ancestors, honor the bloodline, our roots. We're going to be looking at something very root and foundational when we're looking at soul retrieval. It has everything to do with that root chakra. finding that place of home and connection. You know, we often think of home being in the heart, but really home starts at the foundation, at the root. And it's the roots of our ancestors that came before us. It's also the roots of our family, our bloodline, the roots of our experiences, you know, all of our foundational moments in life. And when we're looking at soul retrieval, yay, yay, Oshun. I gotta send some special love up to Yay, yay. I think I want to bring in a little bit of cinnamon for her too. Let's see, where's my cinnamon stick? Do I have it? There we go. We'll bring in a little of that too. When we're looking at that foundational stuff in terms of experiences and how it relates to soul retrieval, often it's related to what can be traumatic experiences. So do be aware that what we're going to be talking about today is sensitive. It revolves around sensitive subject matter. So if you're not really in a space where you feel like you're ready to take that in and be present with that, hold that, hear it, you know, this might not be the right time, you know, to tune into this for you. And please respect where you're at. Okay. It's all about your readiness. Okay, so I just want to bring that in as well. And we're going to bring in cinnamon, not only to honor Oshun because she's very special to me. I love the Orishas and I love working with Oshun. Um, Oshun brings in the sweet waters and she's connected to the river, you know, the river of life, the river that flows through everything. You can never step in the same river twice. And she also represents love and beauty. Um, Very powerful creatrix in the African diaspora tradition. In fact, the creation of the world couldn't happen without Oshun. They tried to do it without Oshun and they couldn't. They needed the feminine. They needed the feminine. You know, we've been talking a lot about this, about the masculine, the feminine, how both are needed. Yeah. The masculine tried to create the world without Oshun. And she said, oh, you think you're going to get that done without any sweet waters? Water is the source of life. Water is the source. You think you're going to be able to get anything done? Oh, no. I'm going to go chill out on the moon for a while. You come find me when you figure it out. And they always did, you know, they always did, they always do, you know, and they did, and they found out, and she was able to bring the sweet waters forward and help bring this beautiful world into creation. But she's coming in today, so I want to bring her in. There might be people who drop in for this that feel a connection with the Orishas or feel a connection with Oshun. I've been noticing since I started this, I've had a lot more of that energy coming forward. So I want to honor it. When it wants to come forward, it wants to come forward. Reading your comment, Krista. Mm. 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 It's a different kind of soul connection, different kind of soul reconnection. Is it okay if I put your comment up so others can see it? I like to be able to take the comments and share them, but I just want to respect everybody's space, and especially with a comment like that. You let me know if it's okay to share that comment, Krista, because I think it's something that might be able to benefit other people to see that who aren't in the live chat. Yeah, you know, there's many different layers of soul retrieval, soul connection. And it can be sensitive work when we're calling these parts back to integrate them. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that. So we're bringing in some warmth and some sweetness. Okay, thank you so much, Krista. All right, just disclaimer, if you bring anything into the live chat, it is public. I just want everybody to know that, you know. Live chat often is up for replay. This is all about me just really honoring what you all are bringing in. I just want you to be aware of the space that we're operating in. And I may like to be able to bring in some comments like this for people who catch the replay who might not be paying attention to live chat, because I feel things like this can be very helpful. You could even work with, this is very interesting. And I would say this for you Krista, as we dive into what soul retrieval is. And if you feel like, no, I don't feel like I need soul retrieval, what we work with today, you could work with it in terms of that ancestral link. You know what I mean? Where you could hold the space to see if your ancestors are ready to start communicating with you. Because that's what we're going to be looking at today with the work we're going to be doing in the journey. For those who feel like they do need soul retrieval, like it resonates, what I bring in feels like a match for you. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be journeying for you to go back to that point in time where you felt like you lost that soul part. And you are going to greet the you back then that's still trapped there. And you are going to ask that former part of you. It's former because you left it behind. You're going to ask that former part of you if they are ready to be reunited with you. Okay. Yeah, I think it could be kind of cool, Krista, right? That's a whole new way of looking at it. And if you think about it, there's a lot of people who are moving through the world. They don't know who their birth parents are. We have some history of that even in my own family bloodline with adoptions and stuff. And so it's really just like there is like some missing pieces. And those missing pieces are so foundational to who you are. They're your roots. So it could be really kind of a cool application. And I think we can roll with it. I mean, it's coming in. So I think we can roll with it. So I love that you brought this in and thank you for letting me share it. Okay. So you can work with it to connect with your ancestral energy too. So let's say you feel like, okay, I'm not ready to, call soul part back. I don't feel like I need soul retrieval. Then the journey we do today, you can do it to like reconnect with your ancestral communication. If you feel like you aren't really connected to your ancestors or there's missing gaps, there's stuff that you don't know about your ancestors. And so in a very real way, you know, you could see it like that. In a very real way, part of your soul is kind of fragmented because your bloodline. That's everything that makes you you. It's so foundational. It's the roots. It's a big part of you. So I think that's very potent. And I love that. And thank you so much for bringing that in. And maybe we'll do a separate one that's totally focused on ancestors. But for today, let's work with this. I think we probably will. I mean, it seems like a good idea to me. Okay. So I'm just going to begin with a little blend that I want to get prepared for actually doing the journey portion because I kind of really feel like I want to jump right into it. So we're just going to give like a little drop in since we've already brought in this concept here. Soul retrieval. What is soul retrieval? Well, soul retrieval is when you call a soul part back, a part of you that you feel has gone missing. And how do we feel we lose a part of our soul? What gives people this feeling? It's usually around some kind of significant event in the life where there was a great sense of trauma. And maybe there was a lot of disassociation at that time too. This can be common just looking at it from more of a therapeutic aspect from a psychological level. The experience could have been so overwhelming. Maybe frequently what comes up is often people will find they have a very young part of themselves that they left behind. There's a lot of times that people feel they need to go back to like their childhood to call a soul part back. So again, we're getting into roots, really foundational issues. And Ted's grumbling there. Yeah, that's not always the easiest stuff to look at, is Ted, but it's important, It's important to understand if we really want to heal and if we really want to evolve and if we want to get out of certain karmic cycles, sometimes it's necessary to look at some of that stuff. Is it okay to share? It's okay. I assume it's okay to share. I think you've already told me, Julie, it's okay to share. I'm going to go ahead and bring that in. So, you know, this is what we're talking about. This is sensitive material. So again, if you're not in a space of readiness for this might not be for you, but I feel like it's stuff that we need to talk about. It's important that we talk about these things. It's important that we create respectful spaces around talking about these kind of things because we're all walking each other home. We need to have places where people feel like they can bring these kind of things forward because often what's needed for healing, especially when we're looking in terms of any kind of abuse, is witnessing, witnessing, acknowledging somebody's truth, okay? And then holding a loving, safe space around that without judgment. And also, this is very important, without trying to fix it or without trying to push the timeline of how long it takes somebody to integrate that experience or what that journey has to look like. So it's hard to find, right? It's hard to find in our world spaces like this. And certainly even harder online. And I've had spaces like this before. I used to have a community called Through Thick and Thin. And I met some really beautiful, amazing people there. And we all came together and, you know, we were able to share from a very deep place. We all did a lot of healing work together and it was really cool. And these kind of spaces can be created. And it's by us really holding that energy together. Just holding that energy together sets the template to create these kind of spaces. So it's safe to bring things in here. But the people who bring things in here and comment, they're ready. You're ready for that healing because you're ready to be witnessed, you know? And that's what it's really about. It's when we're ready to stop holding it in out of some kind of sense of shame or secrecy, you know, that it has this power over us and we are trapped. We're not free. And the moment that we like set it free and we speak our truth and we embody the truth and we let ourselves be witnessed in that, it is such a point of empowerment. And the more that we can build spaces of community where people can come together around this and say, we got this, we got this, and I got you, we got each other. We're all here in this. We recognize that none of us get out of this alive. Okay, we're all in this together. We all need to heal. We all need to heal. So can we please just like let's show up together and hold that space within ourselves and for each other and witnessing and allowing people the time they need to move through their own healing processes because there is no timeline. It happens on its own timeline. So soul retrieval often occurs around a traumatic, the need for soul retrieval often occurs around some kind of traumatic experience that occurred that was too much for the consciousness to process at the time. And you can have a big hint about this if you went through some kind of very deep grief or deep loss or some kind of trauma where it felt like you just totally just lost connection to your body or lost connection with reality. Disassociation is very common at points of soul loss. You know, it's when the experience has become the feelings. This is what disassociation is. The feelings become too big, too much to hold, too much to process, too much to integrate. It feels like it'll swallow you whole. And so what happens is we go to a place inside where we cut ourselves off at the neck and we make it a big heady experience. We go all up into the upper channels here. And as that energy continues to build, so let's look at it Ayurveda terms because we're in Panchakarma right now. Okay, timeline splitting, same thing. You know, that can be, you know, a disassociative thing too. You can lose time. You can lose memory. These are all clues. You know what I'm saying? All of these things are clues. Yes, that feeling of like, wait a minute. This is just coming around the bend again and again and again. These are all clues because they show that somewhere there's a skip in the record. There's something that has created this gap that is not allowing connection. All right. And it's looked at differently, from different perspectives. So in native tribal shamanism perspective, there is the belief that at those points of these great traumas or these great, impacts, when it's too much, that these experiences come and they are meant to crack a person open. But sometimes things happen and we're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? Or it's some important part of, I'm going to bring something a little controversial into the mix, but it's something that's arrived actually to like awaken. Sometimes it's like a really deep tower and it happens on a soul level where the basic structure, identity of who you are falls away and you have to kind of be reborn into a new essence. This is actually what it means to be a shaman. You hear people throw out these terms. I'm a shaman. There's shaman workshops. Sign up for this shaman class. Learn to be a shaman in a weekend. It doesn't work like that, man. It just doesn't work like that. To be a shaman, and a shaman would never call themselves a shaman. They just wouldn't. It's a title that's given. It's not something you dubbed yourself. A shaman has to experience a complete fracturing from the ego. There's an ego death that happens. There's an ego death that happens for somebody to step into that medicine of being a shaman. This involves a really heavy duty fracturing. And traditionally, in many different tribal traditions, and this is globally across the world, you get put through it. You get run through the gauntlet, of your community, disrespected, exiled, spit on, beat, have your hair cut, be humiliated. And then often, very frequently in many traditions, you are buried overnight under the earth. And it's so you can experience that symbolic death, as in the old me no longer exists. I'm now being born anew into this when they unbury them the next morning. And so, there's a big psychic fracturing that happens in that case. And that's how people move into the path of a shaman. And probably most people that are shamans would feel it's somewhat of a wicked blessing because of what it takes to get there. And it's something that's marked for a person. It's not something you do in a workshop on a weekend, in a class. You see come up on Facebook, it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy to see stuff like that because it really just disrespects the roots of these traditions. But, there's this piece about, it's a similarity, it's a similarity in a sense that sometimes, soul loss happens because there was a need for a certain gift to awaken inside of you. And this can be anything from a certain healing ability, a certain psychic sight, gaining clairs. It could be a certain level of compassion, or awakened you into some kind of life of being of service to people. So sometimes soul loss, it too has a gift, right? And often the true gift comes in cases of soul loss when the soul part is reintegrated, when you call the soul back. In a very real sense, that is that axiom of healer, heal thyself. you know, and we're all on that journey. And soul loss can happen at varying degrees. So there can actually be this soul loss that is viewed of in tribal tradition as you actually left a piece of your soul behind there. Okay. Or looking at it from a more psychotherapy aspect, it's you had a fracturing in your consciousness. You left the building. In some cases, this can be as a result of a nervous breakdown. It can be some kind of trauma that's impacted in such a way where it forms like a PTSD response, where there's like this, like, I almost consider it, like, I talk about it a bit in some of my other courses, but it's like a samskara gets formed on a physical level. Samskaras are like, they're like psychic karmas, like psychic wounds that kind of stay with you. They're embedded in your auric field. That's what your karma is. When you're like born into the new life, you have some skaras, you have certain things that you need to heal and resolve and integrate in this life, right? And then in other ways, samskaras can manifest physically. And I have come, this is my interpretation of it, okay? This interpretation of it isn't necessarily an interpretation in Ayurveda. The concept of samskara is, working with neurology and all of the bodily systems absolutely is part of Ayurveda, as well as techniques I've, learned to incorporate to work with this. But namely the lymph system, which we'll get a little bit into the glymphatic lymph system. Um, the glymphatic lymph system plays an intimate role in this. So there's actually ways that you can start to address those repeat loops you get in your consciousness. But I've kind of related it to this in terms of soul loss, soul retrieval, or where there's been this psychic fracturing. That's kind of what PTSD is. It's like there's a part of your consciousness that got split off and it's trapped and it's stuck back to this certain point in time where there was a great trauma or a wounding. And because of that, the brain is constantly going to this same place in the neural loop. It's going over the same ground because it's like a scar has formed there. And it's a scar. That's what a samskara is. It's like a psychic scar. Okay. So it's like a samskara has formed there. And just like with anything that's trying to heal, right? Like you fall, you get hurt, you skin your knee, get a scab. What happens? It starts to itch. Okay. So I feel like that's what the PTSD response is kind of like. It's like it's uncomfortable. Hey, Mojo, welcome. It's uncomfortable. It's that scratch. It's that itch that you feel like you need to scratch it. So you keep going back to it. You keep going back to it. You keep going back to it. But the more that you pick at it, the worse it gets. Right. And so it can't heal. So you keep going back to this place. I see soul retrieval in the case of looking at it from a psychological perspective like that, and how it relates to PTSD and keeps a person in a certain place of suffering and feeling like there's a piece that is lost. So they work with it a lot in therapy. They'll work with it a lot in therapy. And how do you know if you've had one of these experiences? Well, if you have patterns of disassociation, if you find yourself like losing time, if you find that you have a lot of memory gaps, there's a lot of things that you don't remember. If you notice that when you had a particular experience, you just never felt quite like yourself after that, it felt like something inside of you fundamentally shifted. And I don't just mean like I changed, I transformed, I evolved, but more along the lines of I don't feel any connection to myself anymore. Okay. Better reparenting. On one level, I would say yes, in relation to young soul parts. Yes. Um, Not always, though. Not always. Yes, you can bring in a question. Well, this is what we're working on. This is why we're working with soul retrieval. And that, I mean, how do you heal your trauma? Well, first, it's about truth telling is the first step, you know, allowing yourself to expose the truth of your trauma to maybe first to yourself in some cases, and that's a really intense step. You might have repressed memories surface, you might have stuff come up, you might have repressed it, pushed it down for a long time, disassociated from it. So first is being truthful to yourself about it, acknowledging that you have this trauma. Next is finding a safe space where you can share it with somebody, where you can let it be seen, where you can let it be witnessed. And it's a long healing process, and there's many steps to that. But this is one part of it. This can be one part of it for some people, this soul retrieval and this work we're going to do today. When we do the journey meditation will help too. I brought in some rose geranium to just bring in some soft protective energy. Also to bring in that energy of love. It's good for clarity too. So we're going to just like kind of bring in some energy around clearing out some heaviness. Let's see here. That's memory gaps, losing time, something in. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing anymore, but self-care like a person with a newborn. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the sense you have when there's a need for soul retrieval. You know, it feels like there's actually a piece of you missing. There's a piece of you missing. And many people find that disassociation, patterns of disassociation come along with that. That's extremely common because quite quite actually a part of you is just not in the building. It's not there. And it can be looked at from two different angles. It just depends on the filter you want to look it through. Okay. It's still the same trip. So people who relate more to the logic, the masculine, okay, maybe this is why I'm bringing this in and I feel the need to differentiate. People who look at things more in a logical standpoint would be best served from looking at it from the psychological perspective, which is used in therapy. You'll commonly encounter this. And in therapy, they do soul retrieval work quite frequently, actually. It's an integration process. And they look at it from those terms, like in the example of PTSD that I just got, that in some way there's some kind of psychic fracturing. Now, at a very severe level, it can be in the case of like, oh gosh, what was her name? Trudy, was it Trudy Styler? Don't quote me on that. She wrote the book When Rabbit Howls, and she went through a lot of trauma in her life, a lot of childhood trauma, and she ended up developing, multiple personalities because it was the only way she could hold the experience was she had to compartmentalize on that level. Very powerful book. So if you feel drawn to read something, as you're going through this process of healing, that might give you some kind of insight. If this is like something that really speaks to you, you might want to look at that. Very powerful. But from a psychological perspective, it's about that kind of like psychological fracturing. And so there's a need to do psychic reintegration in order to reconnect with the part of you that wasn't ready to face the trauma. And so it's by being in a place of emotional and spiritual readiness to face what was too much, too overwhelming to process. And I have to make this point with a lot of support. Don't go to these weekend things, okay, for stuff like this. It requires ongoing support while you are going through the integration process. Over here for just a second. For those who view it more spiritually, you actually feel like you left a part of your soul back there. And your soul has not felt right. You have not felt totally in your body since this happened. And it's almost like a case of invasion of the body snatchers. Like you just don't even know who you are anymore. You have to like reinvent yourself all over again. So it's because you feel my soul isn't here. There's a part of my soul that is missing. Okay. So it all depends, and you can work with the journey we're going to do today. You can work with it just to see if during the time, if you feel like, nope, that's not me. I don't feel that level of disconnection. I don't feel that sense of like soul loss, or I don't have any kind of like, I don't feel like I'm completely missing something in my psychology. Like there's something missing there where I had a moment of fracturing like that. But I do feel like there's still my energy. It's held back a little bit in the past, maybe just by memory or how it's affecting you presently. You can still work with the journey we're doing today. You'll just have a different focus. You'll be going back to that place in time to kind of connect with that you back then, to ask them what kind of medicine and wisdom they have to share with you, to give to you, to bring forward. Okay, so we'll create some different ways that you can work with that, so it can serve all of you. Now the thing with calling the soul part back, there's a few different things that are involved in this process. First is the understanding that when you call a soul part back, you have to really be ready for it. And so that's what we're going to be doing the journeying for today. We're going to go back to that point in time when you experience this sense of disconnect, and you are going to see yourself there, and you are going to sit with yourself, and you are going to ask, are you ready to be reunited with me? Are you ready to come home? Because you may be surprised, but there may be sometimes that where you are now, you may be ready. You may be ready, but when you go back and you journey back and you have a seat with the you back then, they're like, nope. And you have to respect that. That's the thing with soul retrieval. You have to say, nope. You just have to say, okay, if you're saying no, I'm not going to push that boundary. And there's a reason for that, and it's for your protection. Because if you're getting a no, that could be mentally too much for you to process, okay? In the case of looking at it from a psychological standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, it could just bring on crisis, okay? So you don't want to do this if your soul part says they're not ready. You got to respect that. You got to leave them there, okay? And maybe it'll be ready at another time. Okay. And we'll create an avenue where you can create the invitation for you to be informed if it does become time for that down the road. So that is a piece. That is an important piece. Let's see the comments here. Yeah, you can make it whatever you want it to be, whatever you want it to be. So I love that, I love that you're feeling what I'm bringing in. So make it what you want it to be, and for those of you who do feel like, no, I have soul loss, and I know I do. And you kind of know if you do, you really do. It's just something you internally know. You have a pretty strong idea that you've had soul loss, then you can actually see if that soul part wants to come back. Oh, yes. Yes. A lot of times it's this. Okay. A lot of times it is this. A lot of times it's working with a very, very young part of ourselves. So this is sensitive work. Okay. It's vulnerable work. You do want to be aware of that. It can bring up a lot of emotions. You will want to engage in a lot of, even just with this, we're not doing soul retrieval today. We're just doing the opening Do you need it? And if you do, is your soul part ready to come back? Okay. We're just exploring it. We're just opening it. We'll go through the whole process. Okay. Over this 40 days that we're doing together. This is just opening up the energy. I'm bringing in yarrow. Okay. Yarrow is protective. Yarrow is also like sweet, sweet masculine energy, which I think is important for this kind of work. It also deals a lot with the past. Okay, well, and that's another thing. I'm glad you brought this in. This is important, okay? So with soul retrieval, let's say you feel like I got a lot of different parts that I left back at a lot of different places. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to enter the space that we go into with journeying. And when you get there, you're going to want to just ask, first of all, what soul parts want to show up to communicate with you. And then see who appears there. Okay, so you kind of want to go into it with that intention, like, okay, what soul parts are wanting to show up and do this work with me today? Okay. And then let the parts that want to show up instead of kind of forcing them to be in the room. You know what I'm saying? And then whoever shows up or however many show up, you can communicate with them about their readiness. It usually is best to do one soul reintegration at a time because it's a lot to reintegrate. It's a lot. And this is the part that I really want to bring in because it's so, so important. When you call back your soul part, it's like a rubber band effect. So you're not calling back you at this age with what you've learned, with the healing work you've done, with where you're at. You're calling back the you were back then. And you have to remember that the you that you're calling back from back there was not able to handle the experience at that time. It was so intense and so emotionally overwhelming that there was a fracturing, there was a splintering off. Okay. So that means when you call your soul part back, there's two phases to it. At first, it feels amazing. I've had 3 soul retrievals. 2 were around a very young time in my life when I was a little girl. And 1 was from when I was in my early 20s and I had a very severe anorexia crisis. Okay, so I have done this work before, and I will tell you that it's a lot. It's a lot. You don't anticipate what it's going to be like for you once it actually hits you. And so I want you, as we start to explore this, and you're not calling your soul part back today. Okay. So, but I'm just wanting you to kind of hold these pieces as we start to, investigate, open up the possibility. Do I need to do this kind of work? This piece, is really important because at first, when the energy comes back, when you reconnect with your soul part or where you come back together, you have that psychic reintegration, it feels amazing. You do feel like you got a part of you back that was missing. You feel whole. And that's a beautiful thing. And at first what comes back is a lot of memories, like a lot of the things that you used to enjoy, and just there's a certain sense of joy and happiness in this feeling of coming together that feels so good at first. But then comes the other stuff. And that's when the pain from the trauma and everything that happened back then, it has like this rubber band effect. It comes back, but it doesn't just happen on this emotional level. It's not like you're processing it. And it's not like you were processing it as you have been here. No, it's like you were physically back at that place, at that point, at that time, and you are experiencing it all over again. on an internal level so you can integrate that shadow. It's intense. And that's why I say you really need to have support. So you should have somebody that you're working with, a counselor, a therapist you trust, somebody that you're working with, spiritually that you trust. If you go to church or you have some kind of spiritual community that you're a part of, um, a very dear, close friend. You need to have sources of support as you move through this process. And I highly encourage some level of therapeutic support is super, super important, super essential. It really is. And you'll really do yourself a disservice if you kind of bypass that portion of it. So, um, and depending on your place of readiness, it also doesn't have to be this thing like you have to go into therapy all the time, but there's going to be things that come up in your experience. And when those things come up in your process of reintegration, you're going to want to have some support. And it should be legit support, not just like, I'm going to call up my friend and I'm going to tell them about all of this, because it's not really the kind of thing you want to put on a friend. It's not the kind of thing that a friend can really hold for you. It's something that requires a real therapeutic understanding for somebody to help you integrate this stuff. And the good thing is that right now there's all kinds of resources with getting counseling, with getting therapeutic support, even online. You can get online counseling. So those who maybe have a real fear, of going out and reaching out in person, they don't feel ready to do that. They don't want to do that. There are other avenues to explore, but I really encourage getting the support you need and really just, and forming community, even a support group, you know, even a support group. Let's say you grew up in a family where there was alcoholism and there was a lot of trauma around that, and you're calling back a soul part from that time, and you realize that's one of the foundational root issues in your situation. You could go to like Al-Anon, you know, as you're going through this process of reintegrating, um, or if you have codependent kind of issues, you could go to Al-Anon and you could do this work of, reintegration of your soul part and have a container held around that. You know what I'm saying? So do explore your resources. And when we get to the part of actually calling soul parts back, I'll put out some resources on that particular video that are places you can begin to explore. But I do feel like it's a really necessary part of the process. And have people done it without it? Yeah, I just don't recommend it because it's not a good experience and you won't be totally supported in that. So it's super important. So this is usually how you know that you need soul retrieval. All right. And we'll work with it on many different levels as we're moving through this meditation. I did want to call in some energy just by lighting a candle to light the way. I also want to first do some cleansing and bring some cleansing energy around all of you. So I'm going to bring in some bay leaf. And bay leaf is excellent for protection, clearing off any kind of negative energy. It also provides blessing energy. It's a road opener. So we're opening this road to look back at some of these past influences and how they're still impacting our lives. And when I go into this portion, oh, I love it. Yeah. Hey, if you all got some herbs you want to burn, if you want to bring some smoke into the mix, You got a candle you want to light? Please bring the energy in with me. Let's build it together. Let's hold this space together. That's what it's all about. We're all bringing our energy together for healing, this reconnection work we're doing. I think that's wonderful that you're working with a therapist. This is perfect, and they probably will really be able to support you in this process, which is fantastic. It's a really important step. I bring it in because it's a really important step that most people miss. And the thing that is really disenchanting is how this like how shamanism has just become like this mass marketed thing, and people are just putting it out there like you can work with these processes, do these things over a weekend. And it's not that you can't call your own soul part back. You absolutely can. That's what we're going to work on here. Okay. But it's people who are profiting off of calling themselves shamans. They're offering up this kind of work, and they are not providing any kind of guidance about what is necessary to put in place for having stability and safety in moving through that process. There's skips. There are skips. There's things that they skip. There's steps, very important steps that are skipped. It's like today, what we're doing is we're looking at, does your soul part even want to come back? Do you need soul retrieval? And does your soul part even want to come back? Or whatever you're looking to reconnect with, your ancestral guidance, does your bloodline want to communicate with you? Do your ancestors want to connect? These kind of things. Or is my confidence ready to return from this time that I lost it, because that requires, you to look at that stuff that, was happening back there. Are you ready for it? And then getting the lesson, getting the lesson that comes through, calling that energy back. So we're just looking today at, does that soul part even want to come back? Does it even want to be reintegrated? We might want to intellectually, and we might think it's the answer, but is it really what's needed? That's step one. They won't do that, when you go in shamanism online, if you're like going to a shamanic course, become a shaman in a weekend and, have soul retrieval and all this stuff, all these things that are promised. It's like you just get to assume you need soul retrieval. It doesn't work like that. You might not need it. You might not need it at all. Okay. And then you need something different. So it's so important, this piece. First of all, does my soul part even want to come back? Do I have a soul part that's even missing? All right. So we're doing that today. Step two. Once we've done that, step two will come later. We'll do that, at another point. I'm not sure when. It will be within this 40-day period, okay? But step two is about actually then calling your soul part back, okay? And then step three is returning the soul parts that you are holding from that time period. And so this can be, in some cases, the soul part of your abuser, the one who harmed you. Okay. So, yeah, exactly. Only $555. Yeah. I mean, I have my own feelings about that. I just feel like it's important to respect the roots of a tradition. I've done soul retrieval work before, when I feel really called to it, and I've never charged for it. I just haven't. It's just not something that um, it's not something that I feel right about, because I wouldn't be doing anything, you know. I wouldn't be doing anything Again, it's just, kind of pointing a finger in a direction and saying, here, this is how you can do this, you know, it's how you can do this. Um, Traditionally, it isn't something that's charged for. There's all kinds of debate about that, shamanism. It's not something that you traditionally charge for. It's like, would you charge somebody to pray for you? You know, would you, I mean, to pray for them? Would you, if somebody came to you and if they said, will you please pray for me? Would you be like, well, that'll be $50 and then I'll shoot you up a prayer? That's horrible. Come on now. That's so horrible, but that's what it's become. That's really what it's become, you know? Could you send some healing energy my way? But likewise, I don't charge for Reiki. I've never charged for Reiki, you know? I've never felt right about that. It's like, no, it's just it's universal life force energy. That's what Reiki is, I've never felt right about like charging people for Reiki. If somebody reaches out to me and they're like, will you please send me some Reiki? I'll always say, you know what? I will gladly send you some Reiki. Sometimes I need to say, let me get juiced up first because I'm a little low energy right now because it does require energy output. I have to be in a certain space. But yeah, I've just never understood that. And I just feel like there's just such a strange thing around all these concepts right now. And you don't want to get duped because it really this is stuff, working with this kind of stuff is deep, so you want to make sure that when you're working through these things, um, um, the soul level stuff, that you have the right support systems in place and that it's a safe space to do this kind of stuff. And that's why I was like, you know what, anybody can call their soul part back. It doesn't require an intermediary. Remember, we've been talking about this. It's like there is no need to have an intermediary. You are that. You're already totally 100% connected to source. So it's not about needing anybody outside of yourself. It's just about your place of readiness and trusting what comes through in your journey and acting upon it and just having some specifics. And I'll do a guided journey for you. And that's more just so you all can let go and give yourself over to the process, but you're doing the soul calling back. It's not gonna be me, it's all gonna be you. I'm just gonna help prompt you through the process. Okay. Oh, wonderful. All right, I'm looking forward to reading for you. That'll be so wonderful. I'm excited to drop in with you, Krista. I've been getting to read for a lot of new people and I've really been enjoying it. Um, okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to light this candle, just call in some blessing energy. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to move the comments out of my view because hopefully you won't be commenting at this portion anyway, because we're going to dive into the journey and I don't want to get distracted because I can tend to get distracted. So yes, if you're not ready for journeying, if it's not time for that, or if you need to do this later because we're going a bit today, you can always come back to this point. Let me see, 58:58 on the clock. I'm gonna put it. Hey, wow, 1313 power numbers. 58, starting the journey. Okay. So you can always come back to it later on the replay if you're just not in the space to do that right now. And I totally get it, totally understand. Right. But for those of you who are, let's do this. I did charge up this candle here with Reiki. So it's Reiki that is holding space of protection and love and healing, strength and courage, not only within this present moment, but it's also extending the energy back to the past and also bringing it forward to the future to create a real safe, loving place of strength, like a container around doing this kind of work. Also, I have brought in emotional healing. So I brought in all the Reiki symbols on this one. We got this candle really charged up. I also brought in Archangel Michael for protection, for courage, for assistance in any energy clearing, cord cutting, purification, release work that needs to be done, as well as transformational work. Brought in Archangel Raphael to bring in healing and everything that is needed to support healing. Brought in Archangel Metatron to just raise the vibration, raise the frequency that we're working with here. Also to help you align your energy for doing this work and being in that place of readiness. And then also called in Archangel Uriel that just brings in truth and brings in a lot of like strong protection. Okay. Just keeps all lower energies out of the sphere. So I'm going to go ahead and tune off these comments now. I'll come back to the comments when we're done and we pop out the other side here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to begin by lighting this candle and just calling in some blessing energy. I'm also going to call in just a little bit of Reiki to send your way. If you do not want to receive the Reiki, just simply say no, thank you. And if you do want to receive the Reiki energy, just say yes. Okay. So it's all about your willingness to receive it. I just want to bring in some Reiki for you so it can also hold this like space around you. And as I bring the Reiki in for you, I will also lead you through a grounding meditation so you can get really rooted. And then we'll go into the journeying together. I light this candle to be as a guiding flame within the darkness as we journey deeply into the shadow, back to a time of deep loss, a sense of fragmentation, back to that place where we feel we left a part of ourselves, where some essential essence of our soul went missing. We ask that this light guides us and creates a feeling of warmth, safety, and protection around us as we do this healing work. We ask to feel the strength of the archangels around us as we take this deep dive and journey into the underworld to see what has been happening beneath the surface in our subconscious and to see if we are ready to reintegrate our soul parts, the parts of us that were not able to handle the trauma at the time. And bringing forward the part of us that is gained in strength, healing, and wisdom that feels ready to do this integrative work now. Give us courage. Strengthen us with your love, your support. Let us feel our ancestors with us, holding us down, giving us roots. Giving us roots so we may gain wings of freedom, so we may soar. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be. So mote it be. And I'm going to bring in some Reiki right now for you to support you in the journeying work we are about to do. So if you are ready to receive this healing energy, this life force energy to empower you in your journey, say yes at this time. And if it's not for you, that's okay. Just state to yourself, no, thank you. And I want you to close your eyes and tune into your body. And start to breathe very deeply, carrying that life force prana all the way down to your root, right at the tip of your tailbone. And I want you to envision there glowing red orb. And breathe into this space and just notice any sensations that you have in this part of your body. Just make a note of it. And now I want you to envision that from this red orb of light, roots start to descend into the floor beneath you. And down into the layer of topsoil, down into the nutrient rich layers of soil, down into the adobe clay layers of soil, the rocky, watery layers, the oily layers, down into the underground caverns where the stalactites form and there's bedrock of crystals and limpid pools that bubble and brew with the heat rising from the Earth's molten core. Down deeper still, the place in the earth where it's pitch darkness. And remember that light, that candlelight that's there. Hold it in your mind's eye to remind you that it's there as a guiding force for you. Even within the dark, you still have a light within that allows you to see. Down, 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 all the way into the core of the earth. Plunge that root system and start drinking up that molten earth energy up through your roots, all the way up through all those layers of soil that you traveled. All the way up until it meets that glowing red orb and fill it with the energy of garnet. See this energy of glowing garnet fill this space and feel how it strengthens you and creates a feeling of stability that roots you, that makes you feel held and connected to the earth. Now take that earth energy and bring it up further into your womb space. Let it fill your womb space with the golden orange glow, carnelian. And feel how this energy of carnelian starts to awaken a sense of creative power in you. How it inspires you to open up to new beginnings in your life and your ability to create from this place. And bring that energy up further still to your solar plexus, to Manipura chakra, and fill this space with the bright yellow gold energy of citrine. And just feel the way it lightens up this area for you. In fact, you feel so much lightness that you see a sun starting to radiate out from this citrine center. And the sun is starting to expand and it's filling up your torso now, and it's starting to encircle the parameters of your body, and it's growing larger still to surround the whole space that you are sitting in. It's surrounding you above, below, before you, behind you, all around you. You are the center, much like the sun is the center of the universe. You are held within this sun in the center of your universe. You just feel the warmth and the holding, the strength, that masculine energy acting in that role as protector, as covering and holding the feminine in such a way that allows you to move into this space of your intuitive nature, your receptivity, your willingness to receive this healing process. Your softness, your vulnerability, your tenderness. And now I want you to envision yourself standing at the edge of a wide open meadow. And all throughout this meadow, there's not a single thing to be seen, just the golden poppies that are now starting to sprout up everywhere. You're watching them come into bloom in this wide open field, one by one. One by one, these golden poppies are coming into bloom until all you see is this large expanse of brilliant orange before you. And Poppy is coming forward as an ally, plant ally, asking you if you would like to enter dream time now, if you are ready to travel back to the past with it coming forward for you as an aid. Poppy is an excellent nervine, and it's very beneficial for incorporating this kind of work when we're looking at some very deep emotional material. It helps to create a sense of calm, and it also helps us to move into altered states of consciousness where we can have a more expansive view. And you look out above and you see just this endless expanse of clear blue sky. It's just such a beautiful contrast, this limitless clear blue sky against this backdrop of brilliant, vibrant orange sprawled out in front of you, and you cannot help but move into this expansion. You're so ready to move into this expansion. You are so ready to receive this invitation. And so you start to walk forward into this poppy field. And you're not sure what you're moving forward to, but you feel it in your gut. You feel that soul tug. You feel the energy pulling you forward. You can't help but respond to the call because you feel there's something, there's something from long ago, something something from long ago that was left behind, and it's calling out for you now, and you have to find it. You know it's your key, it's your missing piece. It's that puzzle piece you've been missing all this time. And as you continue to walk forward, you notice this tree. It looks just like a shrub. It's so far off in the distance, it seems. It looks like it's just a shrub, but it's a tree. You know it's a tree because you now hear the tree spirit communicating with you. You may even be getting a vision in your mind's eye of what this tree looks like. This tree may even be an old friend. It may be a tree that you have sat with before. And you continue to walk forward, moving a little more quickly now because you feel this reunion with this part of nature that used to give you so much comfort. This part of nature where you always felt so held and so welcome. And as you get closer, you see that indeed it is your tree. And you walk up to the tree and you place both of your hands on the tree and you thank it for calling you back to your roots. You place one hand, your right hand, on that tree trunk and place the other hand now on your heart. And just send that love to the tree and thank the tree for providing the network of communication that's going to allow you to travel down into the underworld to connect with this soul part. Thank this tree for providing the grounding for this space. Thank this tree for holding this space for you in a way where you truly feel that you're safe in this process. And you notice at the base of this tree, there is this very large opening. And you're now guided to enter this opening, much like Alice followed the rabbit down the rabbit hole to Wonderland. Only you're going to journey to the underworld, the place where we go for soul reunion and recognition, and to enter into the guidance of our totems in dream time. And so you crawl into this hole and you begin to crawl down. You are crawling down, and as you crawl, you can feel the earth in between your fingers, and you can feel the dampness of it. You smell the earth all around you. You smell the wood from the roots of that tree, and you continue to go down deeper. And as you go deeper, it's even more dark. And now you're just going totally by your senses. You're just going by the feeling. And at the same time, it feels very safe to move down into this space. There's even something about it that feels very familiar to you. And you continue to descend down, and we're going to count down to arrive all the way down to the bottom of this space from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You now find yourself in this wide open space. You can actually see, and I want you to take a look around and notice what is this environment that you're in? What does this environment look like? Just get a read for the room for a minute. Just get yourself a little acclimated to your surroundings. And in the center of where you find yourself, there's a path, and it's asking you to step forward now. And so you step forward with your focus on the dot two, the one pinpoint light that you see up ahead that's calling you forward. You know that the soul part that you're looking for is back there. And as you walk, I want you to pay attention and notice if there's any kind of animals that appear on your path, any kind of symbols that appear on your path. I want you to reach down now at your side, at your right side, and you're going to find that you have this medicine bag attached there. Take that medicine bag with you, and when you encounter any animals, any symbols on this path as you're walking forward, I want you to hold the bag open for them and invite their essence to enter that bag for you. These are medicines that you will be carrying forward with you after your time here. And as you continue to move forward and progress on this path, you see that light get brighter, and it's starting to expand, and it's getting bigger and brighter and bolder, and it almost seems to have a force of its own, and you now feel its energy pulling you in through this bright white light, and you step in through it and break through to the other side. And what you find is you. You sitting there alone by yourself. Notice what age you are. Notice your surroundings. Notice what clothes you're wearing. What are you doing? Just sit for a moment as an observer and witness yourself at this point in time. Sometimes we have an idea, we think we know the soul part that we need to call back. And sometimes it can be different than we expect. So this is just about witnessing in this moment. Notice what soul part is sitting here. Notice what they're doing. Notice the expression on their face. And give this soul part the space it needs for a moment, just to get acclimated to the introduction of your energy, your presence, because it's been a while. It's been a while. And now you notice that this part of you that was left behind now turns and looks at you. And I want you to ask this part of you, is it okay if I come closer? If I sit with you for a while? And listen to their response. If they say no, simply respect that. Sit and just continue to hold space for the remainder of this journey. There's something that will still come through for you here. If they say yes, I want you to go and I want you to sit with this part of you. Now, I want you to ask them, is there anything that you have to say to me? Is there anything that you need me to know? And even if you are sitting at a distance, because it wasn't okay for you to come and sit close, please still ask this question. Is there anything you have to say to me? Is there anything you want me to know? And I want you to reassure this part of you. You can tell me anything you need to. I'm here to hold it for you. I won't abandon you. I will receive it with love. It is safe for you to tell me anything you need to tell me in this moment. And then just listen. No interruption. No trying to change what this part of you wishes to express. And you may be surprised by what comes forward. It's not always a warm welcome. So just take a moment and witness this part of you. I continue to bring in Reiki for you while you're listening. I'll give you a little space for that, and then I will guide you through the next part. And then when they have said everything that they needed to say to you, ask that soul part, are they willing to receive communication from you? And again, if they say no, thank them for sharing and let them know that you will hold their truth respectfully and you will wait. You will wait until they are ready to make contact with you, that you will honor this. And if they are ready to receive communication from you, place your left hand on your heart, place your right hand over that left hand, and speak from your heart to this part of you. Let them know what you want them to know. Say what you need to say. Ask them if it is time for them to reunite with you. Ask them if they want to come home. Ask them if they are ready to reconnect with you again and express your desire to reunite with them. And as you express this, you may find that they are, but there might be certain conditions, there might be certain things they need you to fulfill. And as you enter into this dialogue with them, I want you to have really good communication where you listen very deeply to what the needs are of the soul part. They may ask that you heal or address something first. They may ask that you bring something into your environment. You might be surprised by some of the requests that are made. They might seem silly to you, but you have to remember you're dealing with a very young part of yourself. What may seem silly to you could be very important to that young part of you. So just listen and receive without judgment and see if they are receptive. And if they are receptive, I also want you to give them the invitation to bring forward any needs they have that you must meet in order for them to feel safe returning to you. I'm going to give you a little time to do that while I just do a little removal of some kind of heavy energies that are around this point in time where this wounding and disconnection occurred. Now, if your soul part said they were not ready to reunite, let them know that you are open and you are ready to receive their return at any time that they feel ready, and that you will allow them to reach out and communicate with you if it is time for you to do that work. Let them know that they have full control in this experience about the timing of that. Okay. If your soul part said, yes, I am ready to reunite, I want you to let them know at this time, I'm going to come back for you soon. I'm going to come back for you soon. You can count on me. I'm not going to abandon you. I will show up, and I will do everything I need to do as you requested to make sure that I'm creating a safe, stable environment for you to return to. And I got you. You can count on me. I won't let you down. And then ask this soul part if it's okay if you give it a hug. And again, they're not ready for that. Don't be hurt by that. It's just a matter of readiness. There's a lot of sensitivity involved in these situations sometimes. But if they are ready, take that time to just embrace this part of you that you've been disconnected from for a long time. And give them comfort and words of reassurance, and thank them for being willing to reconnect. Thank them for trusting you to do as you promised and to return for them. And now it's time to go. So say any final goodbyes for now. And I want you to get up and turn back to face that light. Take a nice deep breath and step through the light and back onto that path. And you notice that the light now disappears. It will return. It will return when it's time to reemerge into this space. Now I want you to start moving forward on your path back towards that entry point that was at the base of your tree. And I want you to pick up the pace, okay? Because once we've done the work, we really need to get moving out of this space. We don't want to take a long time traveling out of this space. So I want you to pick up the pace, move forward purposefully, start moving a little more quickly, start heading toward the roots of that tree. I want you to start picking up the pace. Run. Start running toward the roots of that tree. And you see the opening at the roots of the tree, and you start crawling up, 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 up. And you see that light up ahead, the light that leads to that field of poppies that you walked through to get to your tree, and you keep heading towards that light, and it's getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter, and you step on through. And you're back with your tree, and the entry point to the tree disappears. I want you to just take a moment and wrap your arms around that tree and thank it for holding the space for you, and just feel the grounding and the way you are rooted with the roots of this tree, and that this is a space, this space of being held, this space of being rooted. This is a space that you can return to at any time you need. You can come back to this space again, again, and again, and again in your consciousness. Anytime you need this feeling of being held, anytime you need this feeling of stability. And tell the tree goodbye for now. And you turn around and you start to walk away from the tree. And as you do, one by one, all of those golden poppies start to disappear, until once again you find yourself in a wide open field with a broad blue open sky. Welcome back. I want you to take just a moment to run your hands over your body. Give a little pat down action to your body. It's very helpful. Over your face, just gently. It doesn't need to be anything harsh, just gently tapping over your chest, over your torso. Go all the way down, get your legs, get the bottoms of your feet. If you're wearing shoes, you can kind of stomp your feet on the ground. And flutter your eyes open if you haven't already. Take a moment, look around the room, look around your surroundings. Make sure that you are drinking plenty of water, that you are hydrating yourself today. Very important. Make sure that you create some gentle space for yourself today where you can really sink in and integrate what you're feeling. If the tree that came up for you was a tree that is actually one you're familiar with, that you do have the ability to visit, the more that you can reconnect with this actual tree, the more that you're going to be strengthened and held through this process. I do encourage you, even if the tree that you saw is not a tree you're familiar with, I encourage you to invite that spirit of the tree to show up somewhere in your local environment so you can have a physical place that you can go and you can connect. It's very powerful and potent for reconnecting with a sense of healing. So I greatly, greatly encourage this for you. Make sure you get some nourishing food today. All right. You really just want to ground out, and where you can create space for rest, create space for rest for yourself. Just digest what came forward for you. So important. And I do just want to open it up at 1:45, 1:46. Let's just call it 1:46 even. If there's any questions, or if anybody has any comments, or they have an experience that they want to share, or anything that they feel like they want to bring in, it can be in relation to this, it can be in relation to the Kapha Reset course and the cleansing we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and give you all a minute for that, because I know sometimes it can take a little moment to type things up. I think maybe I'm going to pull, yeah, I'm going to pull out this Wisdom of the Owls tarot, and I think I'll just do one round of cards too and just see what kind of guidance wants to come forward for this soul retrieval process. For those doing this work, it might be interesting. There might be some points of connection with what came through for you. Journeying goes deep. Journeying goes deep. I like this. It was intense, but enlightening. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because it's not always what you expect you're going to encounter, right? When you think of soul reunion, sometimes you think that they're going to be like so happy to see you. I'll give an example. I'll share a bit of my experience. When I did a soul retrieval where it was working around my 6-year-old self, um, initially, my gosh, it was like throat chakra block. That was interesting. Okay. All right. I might have to, I'm gonna have to lead myself by watching this video through this journey later just to see what happens. Mm. Oh, that's a really good idea. And I encourage this for people. Writing can also be very cathartic, right? Because writing helps you look at something like kind of like outside of yourself. Um, and it gives you a different perspective, it kind of gives you that bird's eye view where you can look at it, from a different angle. And it might also unlock different parts in your consciousness. You met 3 different parts of yourself. Okay. So now it's going to be really about determining like which part are you going to integrate first. And I'm sure you already got some guidance about that when you were there. That's very important because you have to do one at a time. Otherwise, it can really not only be overwhelming, but it can also muddle the energy, which can only create more kind of a sense of disconnection. So that will be a really important piece. But I noticed when I went to retrieve my 6-year-old self, I did some work with Dr. Stephen Farmer. He wrote the book Earth Magic. A lot of people have heard of Stephen. He's a real cool cat. And he held such beautiful space for me around my soul retrieval. He did amazing work with me. I feel very grateful to have received that. And he guided me too, He helped guide me through the process. It was really empowering to, instead of going to somebody who kind of like put themselves in like, I had a soul retrieval. The first soul retrieval I had wasn't so hot, I have to tell you, because I went to somebody who didn't let me know all the parts of the process. And I went to somebody who also didn't provide any kind of support through the process. There was no ability to really ask questions or get any kind of guidance. There was nothing. There wasn't even anything that I was even informed about that would be necessary in terms of doing any kind of therapeutic work, having the need for therapeutic support. And it was a really intensely harsh experience. It was brutal. My first soul retrieval was brutal. That was around my it was like 20, my 22-year-old self. I did that soul retrieval part, and that one was really intense. My other two were really sweet. They were really sweet and really beautiful, and they revolved around younger parts of myself. And it was because I had a whole different container held around the experience, you know? I felt very safe. Stephen would periodically like check in with me. You know what I mean? He'd be like, "How's it going? Is everything going all right? If you have a question, bring that question in." He encouraged me, to go get some kind of therapy, go get some kind of support as I'm going through the process. But because of him letting me know all the pieces involved, mainly the most essential part that I would have to return soul parts too. That was left out of my first one, and it made it incomplete. I had to do it for myself later when I learned. And then it was like, then that felt good. Then that felt complete. But it wasn't until I got that memo that I was able to really integrate the work. So my first soul retrieval dragged on for a number of years. It was a few years of really deep integrating. It was hard. It was hard. It was hard. It really pushed me to my edge with that 22-year-old self. It really did. I was like, I won't lie. I was like, I don't know why I even did this. But you have to understand, like, there was nothing about the experience was an empowering experience with my first time around. First of all, they didn't even have me go through this process of even asking if that soul part was ready to be reunited with me. And I learned over the years that that is foundational. It's such an essential part. There needs to be the readiness of that part of you to be reintegrated, not just your readiness. So it was pretty wild. And all the power was kind of put in their hands. Like they were the ones that knew what soul part needed to come back. They were the ones that knew what that soul part needed. And it totally just bypassed my own connection with myself in the process, which seems so like dissonant. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. I'm reuniting with a part of myself. Who would know better than myself what soul part I'm meeting and what that soul part has to say to me and whether it's ready or not? You know what I'm saying? So Stephen Farmer really helped me with all that. And it was brilliant. And it was such a different experience. So my other soul retrievals were like just so sweet. They were like so sweet and beautiful. And yes, there was pain to process, but I felt very held. It was like a totally different experience entirely. I met my 3-year-old self, and my maternal grandfather showed up as proxy for my father with a message for me. See, this kind of work is powerful. And that's the thing. It's like the keys are all inside of you. The things that you feel like you're missing, like the guidance or the understanding or the missing pieces, they're all there. They're all accessible. We just have to know how to access them, you know? And that's why I want to bring this in because, again, you don't need an intermediary. You can do this for yourself. You can absolutely do this for yourself. You can call those parts back yourself. And that's empowering. That's empowering. And it's the truth. Nobody heals you, they hold space for you. And I'm not saying there's not a responsibility in holding space or that doesn't require a kind of presence. It does, absolutely. But you're the one who's healing. You're the one who's doing the healing work. And you know what's best for your healing ultimately and the best ways to go about that. So I really wanted to share this empowerment of this knowledge of how you can access this, how you can work with this. And that's why we're going to go through the whole process together. You know, is sometimes when you do soul retrieval work, at first you think, oh, it's just this one soul part. And then down the road, once you've integrated this part, now I'm ready to integrate that other part. You know what I mean? It can kind of set off a chain reaction. You might have a few soul parts. I mean, we got that case here. I saw my infant self in a warm cave protected by a fierce wolf. I was curled up. Cubs is so beautiful. I love that. I love the symbolism that comes in. See, look at those totems that came in for you, you know? Wolf, the pathfinder. Wolf is also like so loyal to the pack, right? A protector. I love that energy and just helping to navigate, and also the instincts, you know, getting in touch with the instincts. That's really, really beautiful. Really beautiful. I love that. I love hearing about people's experiences. It's really beautiful. Now, with that one soul retrieval that I did when I was 6, going back to that point, um, looping back around about how sometimes you hear things you don't expect to hear. And just for anybody who does this, maybe you got a different kind of reception that you were expecting. I don't want you to think that anything's wrong, you know. Sometimes it's a matter of timing, and it'll be, you know, a time to come into that point of connection down the road. You know, maybe there's certain things that need to happen. A lot of times there will be certain conditions put in place, like certain things that your soul part wants in order to feel okay returning. Some of those things may seem silly. They may want you to buy their favorite cereal. I mean, if you're dealing with a kid, you know, if you're dealing with a very young part of you, they may want you to have a special blanket ready for them. You know, when you call them back, they may want you to have their favorite cereal. They may want to listen to, you know, certain music, or they might want a teddy bear, or they might want to watch cartoons. Okay. So don't ever question what comes through on that level. Likewise, if you're dealing with some heavy trauma, you might be surprised what you get in return. Now, when I was, you know, 6, going back to visit my 6-year-old self for my soul retrieval, you know, here I thought I was going to get this warm reception. They so happened to see me. No, she was pissed. She was angry at me. And that's what I had to receive when she first started talking to me. This is that I did this soul retrieval back in like 2008, I think. Yeah, 2008, I did this soul retrieval. And when I first greeted my 6-year-old self, she was pissed at me. She was angry. She wanted to know, how dare I left her back there? How dare I abandon her? How dare I do that? I mean, I got read the riot act. And I took it, you know, that part of me was not very understanding. It just did not want to see me, you know, my older self's point of view. And I wasn't trying to enforce my point of view, you know, and it needed to be witnessed in that. That part of me needed to be witnessed in that pain, that anger, all those emotions. It's an essential part of the process. I do want to also let you know that over the next few days, even though this was just touching base, this was not like doing soul retrieval, but it's just like the initial contact point, and it's going to start to open up a process in you. So, what can happen over the next few days? Well, you have to remember you were making contact with a part of yourself that likely was in some kind of trauma state, panic state, fear state, also a part of you that didn't feel safe, a part that also potentially could have been doing a lot of disassociating. Okay. So grounding, 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 grounding is going to be really important for you over the next few days. You may find over the next few days that there might be times when you need to take extra naps. You might need to take it a little bit easy. We already talked about that with this Panch Karma cleanse process, that your need for rest prioritizes over everything. It prioritizes over exercise. So I don't want you to feel like you're somehow shirking on Panch Karma if you're like, you know what? I don't feel like exercising today. Today, I feel like curling up in a blanket and just bawling my eyes out. Then let yourself do that. If that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. Okay. And be very gentle with yourself during those times. Like bring in like maybe some warm, you know, you can make a healthy cocoa. You can make a healthy cocoa. You can get like some nut milk, and you can get some raw honey, and I like hazelnut milk, makes such a good like healthy cocoa that you can have on Panchakarma. You could do some cinnamon in there, you could do a little cardamom um, and your raw honey and your cocoa, just get some good Dutch cocoa, unsweetened. It's delicious. You could even put a little rose water in there. It's so divine. And that's like really comforting, or have some chamomile tea, things along these lines. Just be gentle with yourself, easy with yourself. You may want to do some like energy clearing baths. You could do that, 2 cups baking soda, 2 cups sea salt. You could add whatever else to it you feel guided to, any stones, any herbs, anything of that nature. Um, yeah, thank you for that. I almost made it to the gym. I was dressed and everything. I couldn't leave the house. Yeah, always defer to where you're at and what you're feeling. It is so, 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 so important. Likewise, I noticed a comment. I'm just going to bring it in. I noticed a comment the other day where somebody had said something along the lines of, "I haven't read all the lessons yet in the Kapha Reset course." You're not meant to. You're meant to go through it week by week. So the only lessons you should have read up to this point, if you've been journeying along, would be lesson 1 and lesson 2. All right. Next week, we'll start in on lesson 3. There's a reason we really want to focus on each individual step. It makes a big difference. So that's a priority. And likewise, this is your experience. So please, yes, this is the goal. We cleanse on this level. If you flub a little bit, if you have a day where, let's say, you made yourself that cleansing borscht and you're like, I want to have, a couple tablespoons of that Greek yogurt on it. I want that. I feel like I need that. Yeah, you're going without dairy. Is that really a big deal in the bigger picture and how it's going to affect your cleansing when you're eating liver cleansing foods, when you're doing the switchel, when you're getting some movement in, when you're working with like doing your salt scrubs and all this stuff? Absolutely not. Okay, so be realistic. Just be realistic about the process. Don't be hard on yourself. It's about progress, right? Not perfection. You'll never be perfect. We'll never be perfect. And this is about just really responding to the needs of the moment. Likewise, we will not be cleansing through the entire weekend. So our cleanse will be done as of Saturday. Okay. So then Saturday, what you can do is your last meal of the day can veer off of the cleanse if you want it to. Like if there's been something during this cleanse that you kind of missed, or you're like, oh gosh, I'd really like to have that, but I'm cleansing. That would be the good time, to have it. You're likely not going to want something junky at that point because you've been eating so clean. You're feeling the benefits of that. So usually it's something like, oh, I really wanted a, I really want like a steak, if you've been steering clear of the heavier meats, that kind of stuff. So just let yourself make whatever you want to have for your dinner on Saturday. You will continue to eat earlier, still within the parameters of the cleanse. But that's kind of traditionally the way we do it on the last day. You determine whatever you want to eat. And from there, what are you going to do? You're just going to go back to step 1 in terms of how you approach food. You're going to focus on eating your prana foods. You're going to have your neutral foods in moderation, and you will sparingly have your regressive foods. And that's one of the benefits of doing a cleanse, right? You do this cleanse and it's like it cleanses your palate. And not only that, but the work we're doing, we're getting so in touch with how we're feeling, right? We're going so in touch with how we're feeling. Like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's perfectly fine. Don't trip on it. Some people would trip on that. I know you're not, but that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. It's like, it's more about, what you're bringing in and the focus. And look, you've already had results. Like you were saying, you already released 10 pounds and I'm sure you got more action going on and more ama you're moving, so it's like, yeah, that may be like, this is the goal. And if you can do it, great. But if you find yourself going, oh, I just need to have like just a touch of Parmesan in there, go ahead. It's not the end of the world. I've had people, when I've gone through the course, with people before, be like they felt like they had to confess to me. I'm like, you're not in any trouble. You don't need to confess to me. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just like, you know, just having the teeny bit isn't going to be an issue. It's like when you make it more of a cornerstone, it's a problem. We're trying to avoid it as much as possible, right? And so yeah, that's all good. You don't have to worry about that. It's all about progress, not perfection. And hopefully, your palate is cleansed enough that you'll find that, even once you go off the cleanse, though you won't be doing the switchel anymore. Okay, so that stops. You stop the switchel as of Saturday. That's your last switchel. You're not doing that anymore because next week we move on to a whole different focus. Okay, and we're going to start working with more the digestion. Okay, because we cleared out a lot of ama. Now we're going to get the digestion and the metabolism fired up, right? So it's a good thing. We're going to get different layers of this, worked out. So yes, for the person who is bringing in they hadn't read through all the lessons yet, you're not meant to. I did bring in Pindi yesterday. That's something that comes in a later lesson, but sometimes when I'm doing the lives and I'm dropping in and I'm talking with all of you, if something comes in, it's because somebody at that point would really benefit from it. So I should bring it in. You know what? I personally wouldn't do it for too long. I mean, you could do the base tea as long as you wanted, but I wouldn't be doing that much that bringing in like the apple cider vinegar. Lemon, you might be able to continue to do a bit of that, but you don't need to overdo it with the lemon either. You probably wouldn't need to do as much lemon. I mean, you could squeeze a little bit of lemon into that tea if you like it, the way it tastes, but I just wouldn't overdo it. It just does it work against? Well, it's just can start to throw off your balance. It's all about balance. You can still do the tea. And what I would do is I just wouldn't add as much lemon juice into it. I wouldn't do 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in it. I would do a squeeze of lemon juice in it. You see what I mean? Because that's a lot. That's a lot to drink first thing in the morning. And now you're going to be bringing other things in that you're going to be doing in week 3. Each step builds on the next. You know what I mean? So it's like that will work counter to what we're going to be doing next. It'll interfere with the full nourishment of the process that comes next. That's why it's laid out like that, step by step by step, because you'll find as we progress in the Kapha course that it's like you'll do a practice for a week and it's like, okay, now we're done with that. Now it's time to move on to the next thing. But I think also just especially in Western culture, we get so used to this place where we really just want to like more is better. We're kind of hardwired that way. Like, let's do all the things. And also it can kind of naturally happen when you're doing like a cleanse process. You feel so good, right? And I agree. I had my switchel this morning and I really enjoyed it. I was like, I'm feeling good. Like I feel like I got most of my alma out. And now I'm getting a little bit of a deeper layer that's coming up and out, but my energy feels so much better. I feel so much clearer. I got my sleep is so much better. I've really been like getting up a lot earlier than I used to, and I just have more energy. And also, like, it made my gut feel a lot better. I was having a lot of I was starting to have some gut issues. So I feel so much better with it too. So I get it. I get you wanting to continue to take it. I would just back off a bit on the lemon juice. Just don't do so much. And if you're doing apple cider vinegar, continue to do it too, but I would say back way off on the amount. Do a splash of apple cider vinegar. Don't do 2 tablespoons. And I think you'll be good because we don't want to get too much fire going, or we don't want to go too alkaline, because going too alkaline is not a good thing. Like people always talk about, oh, it's all about alkalinity as health. No, it's not. If you go too alkaline, you're going to have a lot of problems. I went too alkaline once and it was disastrous because I did Panchakarma, and during Panchakarma, this one Panchakarma I received Panchakarma at the Dhyana Center. And so I was put on a mono diet and I had nothing but khichdi, And I got used to it. I got used to not having meat. I got used to not having dairy. I got used to not having any of this. And it was just vegan, right? And I'd never done vegan at all. And I never had any idea about going vegan or anything like that, anything of the sort. But I just had so much energy that I was like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to keep on doing this, man. And I did it. I ate that way for like, I think it was about 2 months. And I felt really good. But then all of a sudden, I started having this really weird experience where every time I went to eat, all around my mouth, it would start to burn and my lips would burn. The inside of my mouth would burn. My tongue would burn. I mean, it was painful. It felt like an acid burn. And all around my lips, it was like bright, bright red. It got to the point where I was scared to eat anything because every time I bit into anything, it just was just pain, so much pain. It felt like a chemical burn. I was like, what the heck is going on with me? And then I learned what the problem was. Once I had it investigated into, I learned that I had gone too alkaline and then I needed to bring in some meat, because everybody is different. What works for one body doesn't work for another. And I was instructed to start taking probiotics, that I needed to get my flora rebalanced, and that I needed to get some digestive enzymes coming in there, because that's what happens. You go too alkaline. Well, now you don't got your digestive fire. You need to rebuild your digestive enzymes. You need to get your healthy flora in there. And that was why I was having that reaction. It was like everything was too acidic. I didn't have the enzymes I needed. Amylase, it starts in your mouth. You need amylase to be able to digest your foods. You need these enzymes to be able to digest your foods. And so I really got myself in a bad spot. And I mean, it was like things that I had always had eaten and never had a problem with. All of a sudden, everything I ate burned my mouth. But I did that. I started adding back in meat again, and I started taking probiotics and getting some enzymes in. And just like that, it went away. It wasn't a problem anymore. So alkalinity isn't the answer. Oh, capsaic. Oh, interesting. And you had always been okay with it before, and it just all of a sudden became an issue. It's interesting. Yeah. But let's just pull a few cards. Let's just see here. So we have bottom of the deck. We have justice. Okay. So we're in this state of bringing ourselves into balance. We're also doing some balancing of karma with this soul retrieval work, right? We're calling parts of ourselves back. So this is really powerful work. And it's sort of like creating a balance too, a balance between the past and our future. Because when we call those past parts of ourselves back, and we integrate with them, we're no longer carrying the past into the future and creating from that place, which can create a real sense of instability. So I see we're arriving at that balancing point. It's also really interesting because when we have the nodes of destiny shift, we will be moving into, for the South Node position, Scorpio is going to slide into Libra. So that's pretty potent. Let's just see. I'm just going to get a few cards. This is not going to be a long reading, but I just felt compelled to tie it up this way. Any guidance to come through for the collective that is doing this soul retrieval work, that did this work today? Any guidance to carry them forward through the weekend, just as they're integrating this experience? Any helpful counsel that you have to offer? I felt compelled to bring in the owl because owl is able to see very clearly within the dark. So it's a real good medicine to bring forward at this time. Owl is also the medicine of alchemy. They are known to have connection to ritual and magic and all of this alchemist work. So felt like owl could give us some insight, some wisdom. Also, Al is associated with the goddess Athena, and that's all about selfhood. Ooh, I love this. You just had judgment fly out of the deck. So I think this is beautiful energy coming in for all of you. Okay. So we have a few cards. So we already had justice show up as the basis of the matter. So you're balancing a very important karmic cycle and close. I got throat chakra stuff going on as I'm talking about this. It's very interesting. So you might notice this. You might notice some areas of blockage there. You might notice some blockages coming up within the throat chakra. Throat chakra is not just about communication and vocalizing for you, with that justice coming up on the bottom of the deck as the basis of the matter. Part of the process of your healing and your soul integration might require you speaking a certain truth, actually speaking it, not just acknowledging it to yourself, but actually speaking it, sharing it, having your truth witnessed. Also, this is the center of your purpose. Okay. So I feel like reintegrating with the soul part, there's some medicine that's going to come through the integration process that is really going to enable you to bring something forward in terms of your life's work, something you're stepping into now. Ooh, I love it. I love that. Here's Al already showing up. How perfect is that? I mean, we have judgment here. So I love that judgment showed up, because judgment is also about, not only is this karmic balance and not only is it wise to be doing this work, but this also wise judgment. And beyond it being wise judgment, it's like a call to have this rebirth. That's what judgment is about. It's about that, like, judgment day. And judgment day is what? First of all, it's like it's a day of reckoning, right? It's a day of reckoning. It's a day of rising up into the truth, really stepping into the truth, owning the truth. But it's also an opportunity for rebirth, that that which was buried, or that which was left behind, or that which was considered, done and dusted, gone, left in the past, it receives the call to wake up again. And so it's sort of like, by doing this work, you're sounding the call. This is an invitation. Yes, I'm ready now. I'm strong enough now. I can hold this space. And Krista, I really love the piece you brought in earlier about parenting, activating that inner parent, especially in relation to dealing with very young parts that you're reintegrating, because that has such powerful application in the healing process, and is absolutely necessary when you're doing any kind of integration on that level, especially if it's around any kind of childhood trauma. So essential to just really create that space to be very soft and gentle, and be how you would be with a child as you go through your period of reintegration, because there's going to be times when it's going to feel activating, and there's going to be times when you feel really emotional. And so in those spaces, though, to your adult brain, it may seem like this is really irrational. I shouldn't be like this. What the heck? But to a child, right, it makes complete sense. And that's the part that you're reintegrating. So in a case like that, you would want to really deal with yourself as you would, if as if you were looking at that 5-year old, you know? And how would you treat that 5-year old? How would you talk to them? What would you do to comfort them? How would you show up for them? And even more importantly, now, just listening to that piece that your young self brought forward, your soul part brought forward, their conditions, what they need to feel safe, really responding to that and showing up and providing those things at that time, you'll find that it really helps to root the process. So this shows me, that reunion is on offer. I feel like a lot of you are getting the call to, like, step into this rebirthing space. The crossing influences the 3 of Swords. Okay, it's the pain, it's the old pain, it's the trauma. Look at how it's in the entry point of the tree. Look at the tree. Entry point is the heart. I love it. I love how that came through. That's so perfect and so beautiful. Look at this owl. See, it's just like what we were talking about. So when you move into those painful spaces, it's about, you know, pain and fear and anxiety, these kind of emotions. We touched on this a little bit in Ayurveda, those are all associated with cold quality. Okay. And cold is contractive. It like holds things in, it freezes things. Cold can make people go cold, can make people disassociate, can make people leave the building. They go too far up into that ether air energy from an Ayurvedic perspective. So, this is about when you're in these spaces that feel cold, that feel contracted, that feel inhospitable, when you're encountering trauma or you're encountering pain. It's about showing up like this owl is. Look how beautifully this owl is sheltering, tending over, watching over. I just love how, it's right there all along the way. Like, I got you, and that's that piece, of being really there for that soul part as you're doing that work and you do feel this pain, to remember, oh, this is the pain of that part of me. And so you want to respond to that part of you, not the you now, the you then. As you're going through that, and just say, hey, I know this hurts. I know you're scared. I know you're afraid. I got you. You're safe now. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to abandon you. And abandonment or rejection are two real common themes that come up in soul retrieval, because often the soul part that got left behind will feel like it was abandoned, like it was rejected, like it was thrown away or discarded, even though it was just that you couldn't handle it at that time. That's how that particular aspect of your psyche, of your soul, that it got locked in that kind of space and time, in that energy signature. So it's about really responding to that space and time, not responding to you present. It's actually not present you that is feeling that pain. It's actually not present you. It's former you. And present you is helping that old part of you reintegrate that experience by, as I was saying, experiencing it on a very experiential level. Like, it's not just going to be like a memory. Okay. And this is why I'm giving this space as well before we actually do the soul retrieval, because it's not going to be just about having a memory. No, you're going to feel it as everything you felt back then, right before you split off. You're going to feel it in your physical body. And this is not a process that happens overnight. I have noticed, just I can only share my personal experience, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, but in my personal experience with the 3 soul retrievals I had, each time, it followed a general similar timeline. And I've talked to some other people, and they also felt like it was pretty similar for them. Okay. So I find that initially what happens is you got about like a 3 month roughly period where it feels really good. You start remembering things that you used to enjoy, and you start feeling more like yourself. You feel an instant like energy return. You don't feel as drained. You feel more vitality. You feel more engaged with life. You feel more hopeful. It really just, it's like this lightning expansion of the energy. And you also feel more whole and just kind of centered in yourself. But then after about that 3 month mark, that's when the stuff comes up to be processed. And you'll go with ebb and flows with it. It's not like it's just like a straight shot, like you're just getting pummeled one thing after another, but you will go through passages of integrating this trauma. And I found on average, it usually spans out over a year's time, the whole process from beginning, to integration point. It takes time to do this work, but you will feel an immediate shift. And even though you may be integrating trauma, you won't feel like a part of you is missing anymore. And for those of you who've been dealing with soul loss for a long time, that's going to be like such a relief, just that. Even though, because it's kind of like, well, I was already in pain. I just didn't have anywhere to work with it. I didn't even know what to do with it, or didn't even know where it came from, or I did a lot of work, but I still couldn't experience that feeling of really bringing all those parts of me together and feeling whole. And this is like that missing piece. So a lot of times, even though it's like, yeah, this hurts, and this isn't easy to go through this, and this is a deep cathartic process. At the same time, oh, I feel so much better than where I was at, right? To feel divided or like a piece of me was missing, or I don't know who I am, or I feel totally disconnected. So it's still empowering. But you're being asked to remember that when you encounter this pain, and to just be very soft and gentle with yourself, and have that kind of sheltering, space that you hold around these experiences. I also really feel like this is quite literally, again, saying, like, go find yourself a tree. And if the tree that came up in your vision is a tree that and it's a tree you visited before, go, as much as you can, spend time with this tree. That tree will hold that pain for you. It will help you process that pain, and it can be an ally in working through your healing process. And if you have not found your tree yet, maybe just kind of like in your meditations, just call out to that spirit of that tree that you did in your journey, or even journey back there, and just to visit your tree, not to go into, the underworld, just to visit your tree and say, hey, could you guide me to, a tree in my 3D reality, that can help me connect. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Here we go. I'm glad we're coming to the end of this. We're coming to the end of this because we already have some trolls starting to show up, but that's okay. Okay, so we have the Page of Swords and we have the King of Cups. All right, so this is really going to be about, it's interesting that that came in right as the Page of Swords shows up, things we need to be aware of, things that we need to be aware of that can interfere with our healing process, things we need to be aware of that can um, create problems with doing this integration work. This might mean you need to keep an eye out for what could be sabotaging influences to your healing process, sabotaging influences to creating that safe space, and then taking the measures that you need to secure that space for yourself to do this healing work. Because it's really about you coming into your heart center when you're doing this integration work. And this is the piece that's coming through again. And I feel like it's the piece that needs a lot of healing at this time, just to open us up to receive and moving into that feminine receptivity. It's really about working with this cups energy, but in the masculine aspect. The masculine aspect of creating that covering, that sheltering, that feeling of being held, like, I got you, you're held down here, like, I'm not leaving you, I'm here to support you, right? So I think also through this process, let's just kind of keep through these 40 days that we're journeying together, this meditation coming in that we brought in before, because it's just so simple. But I also feel like it's so potent to just remind ourselves that feminine with the left hand over the heart, the masculine with the right hand, holding space, sheltering, covering, it's also a unification point. So I think that it'll create a big sense of safety just in moving through some of those more challenging emotions. And one more cut of the deck energy. And then I think we'll sign off because I put that troll in time out. So we're just not even going to bother with giving them the space to come back in. Knight of Pentacles. Okay. So you got a pentacle that you are working with now, and it's the seed of your healing. And just remember, this takes time, this journey of really stepping into that light and that point of soul reunion. It really takes time. Okay. And I also want you to sit with this piece as well, with everything that got brought in, just about what's required to do this integration work and what you may encounter. And it's like, okay, you had your soul parts say that they were ready. Okay. Those of you who are going to the next step with this, and you had your soul part say it was ready. Now's the time also to really sit with this in this space that you have and really get clear. Are you ready? Are you really, really ready to reconnect? It may be ready. Are you really ready? Okay. Because this is not a process that's going to play out overnight. The Knight of Pentacles is a very slow moving energy. It lays down the proper foundation. It takes time to get to the other side of this experience and the sweet reward of that homecoming and the gift that comes out of this reintegration process. But if you commit to it, if you feel it's worth it, if you pour your heart into it, something really beautiful will grow out of it for you. Okay. And on the other side of the deck, Five of Swords. You know, do create safe spaces around this healing process. It's so important. And I don't negate anything that comes in a reading. So just at that point here, we've had this, very safe space that we've created around this where we could share, where respectful communication was coming in. And then we had a troll come in to kind of like interfere with the process, right? So you need to be mindful of this. I would also say if you're going to go through this process, be mindful of who you share the experience with as well. All right. Not just in terms of looking to get additional therapeutic support through the process, but also any close ones that you choose to pull in and share your experiences with. Make sure they are people that really truly do have the ability to listen and receive without any kind of judgment, and that they will be supportive influences during this process because it is such deeply sensitive work and is so necessary for there to be respectful space held around it. Okay. Any questions before I sign off? Anything you want to bring in? Let me just give a couple minutes in case there's anything that needs to come in, anything that needs to be said. Krista, I will look to my email for your request and we'll get you scheduled for a reading. I'm excited to drop in and read for you. I always love to read for a new person. So I'm really looking forward to that and giving you that one-on-one support. It's very different with a personal reading. You can go like so much deeper and give so much more insight. So I'm excited to work with you and thank you so much for showing up. Thank you to everybody who showed up today and participated. Thank you to all of you who will come and will catch the replay. If you do have any questions, please let me know. You can just drop them on the comments of the replay. I will be sure to get back to you. I won't leave you hanging. I do have timestamps available. I have timestamps for when the journeying started. I also have a timestamp for when I started pulling some cards. I have a potato kitchery recipe. It's very simple. You know what you can do? You can take the kitchery recipe that I have there in that Coffer Reset course and just take out the rice and put in potato instead. It's just a matter of swapping out the grain, for potato. You incorporating cooked potato like you would the mung dal. Yes. I'm excited too, Krista. Yes. Yeah. I actually like latke. I knew this woman named Laka. She makes amazing, amazing. Ooh, I get to be your first. I love that. I love when I get to introduce somebody to receiving a reading. I've had quite a few of those lately, so I'm super excited about that. I love to open people up to the experience. I'm so grateful. Thank you for letting me be the first person to read for you. I'm so excited about that. Latka was a woman that I knew through the Dhyana Center. Sometimes she would make wonderful, wonderful Indian cuisine for us when we had events at the Dhyana Center. And she once made a khichdi recipe that had no dal in it at all. It was just all potatoes, vegetables, all kinds of like digestive enzymes, spices, brought in all those like, curry seasonings. Um, and she like, it was kind of like very like, it was very like a real thick stew. Um, and had like nourishment of broth in it. Oh my gosh. It was the best freaking khichdi I had ever had. I loved it. So I actually did a khichdi for this one because I was really called to it. I was really just, I wasn't really wanting, I wasn't really feeling drawn to the dal, and I wasn't really feeling drawn to rice at all. I'm not a big rice person in the first place. So I did basically all the spices, I did all the vegetables. I did, a bone broth base just to have that real like nourishing element in there. And then I did a bunch of potatoes and I just boiled them up with all of the spices and the broth and the veggies. So it made it like real thick. It looks like, a khichdi. A khichdi gets that really kind of thick, like porridgey look, like it still has that same look to it. And I just ate that and I topped it with some ferments, I put some of my raw kraut on there. And that really, really, really helped me. Really helped me. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Julie. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really excited. It's a whole experience. We'll have fun, Kristen. Just to know that you're like going through this process. Oh, we'll have fun. We'll have a lot of fun in our read. So we'll go to a real deep place. I'll make sure that I get back to you after I sign off here. I'll send you an email, okay? We'll figure out scheduling. I'm already all booked up this week, but I do have some openings near the end of next week. Okay, so we'll talk about that. We'll get you in. We'll get you in. Okay, so it looks like everybody's good. Everybody's good. And yeah, in the future, anything you want to swap out for rice in the khichdi, you can add any starch in there. It doesn't have to be rice. You can do potato, you can do quinoa, you can do any grain, really, honestly, whatever you wanted. You could do millet, anything you wanted. Um, and you can even do one that is just all potato too. I know that. I imagine that there's some people who've done grain, all grain. I mean, you could do a porridge, just straight up porridge and make it super nourishing. You could do something like I've been doing a lot of kind of like porridge type stuff as I've been eating through this week. Um, you can do like you can even do oatmeal, okay? You could do oatmeal and you could like make a golden milk with coconut milk and turmeric and cardamom and cinnamon. And you could put a little ghee on top of that oatmeal and you could use some raw honey, to sweeten. And you could do that, and that can be another khichdi of a sort, kind of. It wouldn't have the complete protein in it, but you could probably make an additional protein adjustment there, I'm sure. You could put some walnuts on top or, bring something else in. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. I know we really wrote it out for a long time on this live today. 2 hours, 38 minutes, 20 seconds later. That's pretty wild ride. I am actually going to be bringing in a read later, though. I was planning on it, and I'm going to be bringing in a read for. We're starting out with Aries because it's their solar return. I'm bringing in my love reading season. Love reading season. I'm not doing a love reading season. I'm doing a love reading for the season. It's going to be called Spring Fever, and we're going to just be looking at romance, love, who's coming towards you, all that stuff, and we'll be looking for single, ready to mingle, those in relationships, and those in really complicated situations. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be going through all the signs, but because it's Aries solar return, they get to be first out the gate. And it's my intention to put that out later tonight. So be on the lookout for that. Ah, well, I'm really glad you showed up. I like that we're all feeling the connection. That's kind of what happens, as we work together, we bring our energy together. And even those of you who make the replay, you're still part of this. Like all of our energy is working together. We're all holding this space together. So I appreciate all of you. Take care. And Krista, I'll talk to you in just a minute and I'll see you all soon. See you tomorrow.